you know, I wanted to quote something that you wrote because I think it speaks to an issue we're dealing with. And it says, when we're silent about the violence in our communities, the violence continues. And as women, we are told that we are covering up, colluding, somehow complicit. When we speak about the violence in our communities, our voices are used in evidence in the arguments that our communities are underdeveloped, more aggressive and more misogynistic. Which links to what you've said. But can you tell us how then you create dialogue around this?
Sure.
It's constructive.
Sure. I remember what was going on in my head when I wrote that, and it really came from the core of me because I'd experienced quite a lot of frustration at trying to highlight the issues without, if you like, you know, stoking the fire of racism. And so what I'd say is, A, it's important to not be silent. The silence kills women. The silence kills our children. And so it's important that I'd rather us have the dialogue in lopsided, untidy ways than not have the dialogue at all. So that's critical. But then within having dialogue, we must be responsible for our histories and our legacies. We must be responsible for who we are now. And that's everybody. That's looking at how we're responsible within the women's movement around, you know, how we think work should be delivered, what the paradigms are, you know, who owns that work, who leads that work, who develops that work. It's critical that minority women have ownership over this work. It's critical, not that our voices are just heard, because people go, let's build inclusion. I'm like, no, we need a bit more than that. We need to be able to speak in our own voices, and that's not about inclusion. That's about a step beyond that. And so that's critical. But it also means that governments and government agencies must think about the tensions when you're doing this work. So, you know, we've known for a long time, in the UK we've got a long history of upsetting community leaders. We just do. And we do because many community leaders are male and self-appointed. And we might not always say the things that they want us to say because, you know, for various reasons they might go, you're highlighting issues that aren't real. We go, but we are. We know that those issues are real because we're picking the cases up. Or they might go, you're going to have people look at us badly. And they're really worried about you, you know, in a context of, you know, kind of racism, etc., etc. So, you know, again, it's really important that we have the conversations in such a way that where possible, we have our community leaders on board, but where we also understand that those voices might not represent the women in those communities. So it's important to look at women's leadership and build women's leadership and build the leadership of younger women as well. So we have those voices. A lone male voice in a community does not represent me. And you know, minority communities aren't any more homogenous than white host communities. And yet somehow we expect there to be one voice, and if you hear differences then you go, they can't get along, they haven't got the same opinion. Well, no, they haven't. They're allowed to be diverse. We are, you know? So it's complex, and it's really important that we don't try and oversimplify it, but that we don't use the complexity of it to not give women decent services. Because ultimately, while we're debating it all, we still need to make sure that women can be made safe. You know, and that has to be at the heart of everything.
Thank you. No, that's a really useful response.